Whoops. Wait, what? Oh, I never set... Hang on. There we go. What? I thought I'd swapped it back over. 1 second. You're going to see that scene again just for a sec. There we go. Yeah, okay. I thought I'd set this up properly before. Hello, everybody. Hi. I'm in a state of chaos. And you are watching Gilliteracy, where this evening, perhaps appropriately, we're returning to some comedy, as I will be reading Three Men on the Bummel. Which is, if nothing else, a very funny name, because it's got Bummel in it. Hi. Hello. I hope everybody's... I'm Sam. Also, I hope everybody's well. Yeah, I thought I had swapped things... But what the hell happened there? Yeah, no, that's weird. I'd somehow missed that. Yeah, hi, how are we? Oh, I haven't set up my reading light, damn it. I am doing... Talk amongst yourselves for a second. 1 sec. Nearly there. All the attention for cider. What are you, Cornish? What is this? Yes, I know cider is the cat. Right. How? Okay. Like, I streamed last week. This is usually the sort of mindset that I end up in when I haven't streamed for like a month. But apparently, I'm just not with it today, so that's cool. Yeah, hi, hello everybody. Welcome to Gilliteracy, where, yeah, contrary to the information that I gave Lucy, because, you know, as we've said many times on here, the pattern that we try to keep is one person reading sort of longer novels or longer form fiction of some kind, the other one reading short stories. And generally the way that seems to work out is that Lucy will take like most of a year, and this isn't a criticism of her, but like she picks long books and will spend like most of a year reading a novel, whilst I chew through my collection of short stories. And then the long things that I choose to read are basically like 2 or 3 short stories bundled together. So I thought, well, it is technically summertime, but I look out the window and it's grim and cloudy and raining, so, you know, it's a British summertime. And I thought, what a good time to return to our friends Jay, George and Harris, and see what 3 men are up to now. Because, you know, they had their boat adventure, which was that like 2 years ago now, I dread to think. Was it really 2 years ago that we read that here? And, yeah, so when Lucy was like making the schedule, she put down short stories because that was the plan. But then I thought, you know what? It was like, yeah, it must have been last month, surely. But yeah, we're going to return in a bit to 3 men, but this time, instead of being in a boat, they are on the Bummel. What is that? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, how is everyone? How are you all doing? My voice already sounds kind of husky. It was doing that earlier. So I have learned, and I don't know why this is a byproduct of, but as I said in chat, in pre-stream chat, I was like completely in keeping with the vibe of this channel. I've been over the last year taking an interest in DJing, and over the last few months have like picked up some equipment and some music and just been like practicing slowly, quietly to myself. And in the last couple of days, I've just been basically treating one of our like mod voice channels as like just an open practice room. So I just like hop in there and stream what I'm doing to that, and frankly, if no one drops in to watch or listen, that's fine, and if people do, that's also fine. I'm making mistakes, don't worry about it. But I found like the last couple of days that I've been doing that, even though I'm just standing for like 2-3 hours and kind of vibing about a little bit, because they're good tunes if I do say so myself. It's very vibes. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, thank you. Yeah, apparently that leaves my voice feeling like I've just been talking for the last few hours. I don't know why my body responds in this way, but I guess it does. So my voice is already, before I even started reading, it's feeling a little bit burned out and raspy. So this is usually how it feels when I get to the break. So I'm going to see how I go this evening, but for what I have marked out to read, it was already short, like a little bit on the shorter side. So I should be okay. I'll be alright. I'm just gotta take it steady, really. Oh, you'll want a text, won't you, in chat? Unfortunately, this is one that it doesn't have links to each chapter. So you have to scroll. You have to catch what chapter I say that I'm reading and scroll if you wish to read along. But you're capable, competent people. I believe in you. I think we can all do this together. But I just glanced at I guess the dedications at the top of that, which I hadn't actually read. Those look great. I will have to read that. Do you Bummel sounds like a river, so it could still be 3 men in a boat. I won't spoil their method of transportation. The story will get to that. But if you're expecting a boat, you may be disappointed. It is also not aircraft. You cheated and looked up the word, but you won't spoil it. I believe when like flicking briefly to the end of the book, I saw what looked like a definition. I was like, oh, okay, this is like where they're going with it. Okay, sure. So, spoil that. You'll forget it. I'll forget it. But yeah, if we're ready, I'm gonna drink some water. I encourage you all to do the same. Is there a dog, and does the dog die? So far that I have read, there is no dead dog. I mean, there wasn't in the first one. Montmorency lived through the first one to the best of my knowledge, so I'm pretty sure if he shows up in this, he'll also be fine. Also, this does the thing that I read out before, where it starts, I think because these were like published serially. So the start of each chapter basically is a summary of what is to come up in the chapter, which itself can be its own source of humour, so it feels wrong to leave those out and ignore those. So, yeah, I'm saying so a lot, and I hope the anyone crafting along is succeeding. Yeah, I guess if we're ready, if we're good, I think everything is now finally actually in place. Does my mute button work? Because I've been sneezing a bit the last few days. That's not my mute button. That's my mute button. A needle pulling thread, exactly. So I make it to bake some bread. Sure. That might be why my throat is sore. Well, there's a little bit of that because I've had like real bad cat hairs stuck up my nose for the last few days, and my sinuses have not been happy about that. So there's that, but I'm definitely noticing like a correlation between, again, being on my feet for like 2-3 hours, bopping around the room, as a man of my age in a room with a ceiling this low can, but still a little, and my throat just going, yo, what? Why have we been talking? No, we haven't. We're just tired and unfit. But yeah, if we're ready, everything seems to be okay and in place. Let's, if you would like, your link is linked. Your link is pinned at the top of chat, and if we're ready, we might as well start with 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Chapter 1. 3 men need change. Anecdote showing evil result of deception. Moral cowardice of George. Harris has ideas. Yarn of the ancient mariner and the inexperienced yachtsman. A hearty crew. Danger of sailing when the wind is off the land. Impossibility of sailing when the wind is off the sea. The argumentativeness of Ethelbertha. The dampness of the river. Harris suggests a bicycle tour. George thinks of the wind. Harris suggests the Black Forest. George thinks of the hills. Plan adopted by Harris for ascent of hills. Interruption by Mrs. Harris. What we want, said Harris, is a change. At this moment the door opened, and Mrs. Harris put her head in to say that Ethelbertha had sent her to remind me that we must not be late getting home because of Clarence. Ethelbertha, I am inclined to think, is unnecessarily nervous about the children. As a matter of fact, there was nothing wrong with the children whatever. He had been out with his aunt that morning, and if he looks wistfully at a pastry-cook's window, she takes him inside and buys him cream buns and maids of honour until he insists that he has had enough, and politely but firmly refuses to eat another anything. Then, of course, he wants only one helping of pudding at lunch, and Ethelbertha thinks he is sickening for something. Mrs. Harris added that it would be as well for us to come upstairs soon, on our own account also, as otherwise we should miss Muriel's rendering of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party out of Alice in Wonderland. Muriel is Harris's second, age 8. She is a bright, intelligent child, but I prefer her myself in serious pieces. We said we would finish our cigarettes and follow almost immediately. We also begged her not to let Muriel begin until we arrived. She promised to hold the child back as long as possible and went. Harris, as soon as the door was closed, resumed his interrupted sentence. "You know what I mean," he said. "A complete change." The question was how to get it. George suggested business. It was the sort of suggestion George would make. A bachelor thinks a married woman does not know enough to get out of the way of a steamroller. I knew a young fellow once, an engineer, who thought he would go to Vienna on business. His wife wanted to know, what business? He told her it would be his duty to visit the mines of the neighbourhood of the Austrian capital and to make reports. She said she would go with him. She was that sort of woman. He tried to dissuade her. He told her that a mine was no place for a beautiful woman. She said she felt that herself, and that, therefore, she did not intend to accompany him down the shafts. She would see him off in the morning, and then amuse herself until his return, looking round the Vienna shops and buying a few things she might want. Having started the idea, he did not see very well how to get out of it. And for 10 long summer days he did visit the mines in the neighbourhood of Vienna, and in the evening wrote reports about them, which she posted for him to his firm, who didn't want them. I should be grieved to think that either Ethelbertha or Mrs. Harris belonged to that class of wife, but it is as well not to overdo business. It should be kept for cases of emergency. No, I said. The thing is to be frank and manly. I shall tell Ethelbertha that I have come to the conclusion a man never values happiness that is always with him. I shall tell her that, For the sake of learning to appreciate my own advantages as I know they should be appreciated, I intend to tear myself away from her and the children for at least 3 weeks. I shall tell her," I continued, turning to Harris, "that it is you who have shown me my duty in this respect, that it is to you we shall owe—" Harris put down his glass rather hurriedly. "If you don't mind, old man," he interrupted, "I'd really rather you didn't. She'll talk it over with my wife, and, well, I should not be happy, taking the credit that I do not deserve." "But you do deserve it," I insisted. "It was your suggestion." "It was you that gave me the idea," interrupted Harris again. "You know, you said it was a mistake for a man to get into a groove, and that unbroken domesticity cloyed the brain." "I was speaking generally," I explained. "Struck me as very apt," said Harris. "I thought of repeating it to Clara. He has a great opinion of your sense, I know. I'm sure that if—" "We won't risk it," I interrupted in my turn. "It is a delicate matter, and I see a way out of it. We will say George suggested the idea." There is a lack of genial helpfulness about George that it sometimes vexes me to notice. You would have thought he would have welcomed the chance of assisting 2 old friends out of a dilemma. Instead, he became disagreeable. "You do," said George, "and I shall tell them both that my original plan was that we should make a party, children and all, that I should bring my aunt, and that we should hire a charming old chateau I know of in Normandy, on the coast, where the climate is peculiarly adapted to delicate children, and the milk such as you do not get in England. I shall add that you overrode that suggestion, arguing we should be happier by ourselves. With a man like George, kindness is of no use. You have to be firm." "You do," said Harris, "and I, for one, will close with the offer. We will just take that chateau. You will bring your aunt, I will see to that, and you will have a month of it. The children are all fond of you. Jay and I will be nowhere. You've promised to teach Edgar fishing, and it is you who will have to play wild beasts. Since last Sunday, Dick and Muriel have talked nothing else but your hippopotamus. We will picnic in the woods. There will only be 11 of us, and in the evenings we will have music and recitations. Muriel is master of 6 pieces already, as perhaps you know, and all the other children are quick studies." George climbed down. He has no real courage, but he did not do it gracefully. He said that if we were mean and cowardly and false-hearted enough to stoop to such a shabby trick, he supposed he couldn't help it, and that if I didn't intend to finish the whole bottle of claret myself, he would trouble me to spare him a glass. He also added, somewhat illogically, that it really did not matter, seeing both Ethelbertha and Mrs. Harris were women of sense. Who would judge him better than to believe for a moment that the suggestion emanated from him? This little point settled, the question was, what sort of a change? Harris, as usual, was for the sea. He said he knew a yacht, just the very thing, one that we could manage by ourselves. No skulking lot of lubbers loafing about, added to the expense and taking away the romance. Give him a handy boy, he would sail it himself. We knew the yacht, and we told him so. We had been on it with Harris before. It smells of bilge water and greens to the exclusion of all other scents. No ordinary sea air can hope to head against it. So far as sense of smell is concerned, one might be spending a week in Limehouse Hole. There is no place to get out of the rain. The saloon is 10 feet by 4, and half of that is taken up by the stove, which falls to pieces when you go to light it. You have to take your bath on deck, and the towel blows overboard just as you step out of the tub. Harris and the boy do all the interesting work, the lugging and the reefing, the letting her go and the heeling her over and all that sort of thing, leaving George and myself to do the peeling of the potatoes and the washing up. "Very well then," said Harris. "Let's take a proper yacht, with a skipper, and do the thing in style." That I also objected to. I know that skipper. His notion of yachting is to lie in what he calls the offing, where he can be well in touch with his wife and family, to say nothing of his favourite public house. Years ago, when I was young and inexperienced, I hired a yacht myself. 3 things had combined to lead me into this foolishness. I had had a stroke of unexpected luck. Ethelbertha had expressed a yearning for sea air, and the very next morning, in taking up casually at the club a copy of The Sportsman, I had come across the following advertisement. 2 yachtsmen. Unique opportunity. Rogue, 28-ton yawl. Owner, called away suddenly on business, is willing to let this superbly fitted greyhound of the sea, for any period, short or long. 2 cabins and saloon. Pianette, by Voffenkopf. New copper. Terms, 10 guineas a week. Apply Pertwee & Co., 3A, Bucklersbury. It had seemed to me like the answer to a prayer. The new copper did not interest me. What little washing we might want could wait, I thought. But the Pianette by Voffenkopf sounded alluring. I pictured Ethelbertha playing in the evening, something with a chorus, in which the crew, with a little training, might join, while our moving home bounded, greyhound-like, over the silvery billows. I took a cab and drove direct to 3A Bucklersbury. Mr. Pertwee was an unpretentious-looking gentleman who had an unostentatious office on the 3rd floor. He showed me a picture in watercolours of the Rogue flying before the wind. The deck was at an angle of 95 to the ocean. In the picture, no human beings were represented on the deck. I suppose they had slipped off. Indeed, I do not see how anyone could have kept on unless nailed. I pointed out this disadvantage to the agent, who, however, explained to me that the picture represented the Rogue doubling something or other on the well-known occasion of her winning the Medway Challenge Shield. Mr. Pertwee assumed that I knew all about the event, so that I did not like to ask any questions. 2 specks near the frame of the picture, which at first I had taken for moths, represented, it appeared, the 2nd and 3rd winners of this celebrated race. A photograph of the yacht at anchor off Gravesend was less impressive, but suggested more stability. All answers to my inquiries being satisfactory, I took the thing for a fortnight. Mr. Pertwee said it was fortunate I wanted it only for a fortnight. Later on, I came to agree with him, the time fitting in exactly with another hiring. Had I required it for 3 weeks, he would have been compelled to refuse me. The letting being thus arranged, Mr. Pertwee asked me if I had a skipper in my eye. That I had not was also fortunate. Things seemed to be turning out luckily for me all round, because Mr. Pertwee felt sure I could not do better than keep on Mr. Goyles, at present in charge, an excellent skipper. So Mr. Pertwee assured me, a man who knew the sea as a man knows his own wife, and who had never lost a life. It was still early in the day, and the yacht was lying off Harwich. I caught the 10:45 from Liverpool Street, and by 1 o'clock was talking to Mr. Goyles on deck. He was a stout man, and had a fatherly way with him. I told him my idea, which was to take the outlying Dutch islands and then creep up to Norway. He said, "Aye, aye, sir," and appeared quite enthusiastic about the trip, and he should enjoy it himself, or said he should enjoy it himself. We came to the question of victualling, and he grew more enthusiastic. The amount of food suggested by Mr. Goyles, I confess, surprised me. Had we been living in the days of Drake and the Spanish Main, I should have feared he was arranging for something illegal. However, he laughed in his fatherly way and assured me we were not overdoing it. Anything left the crew would divide and take home with them. It seemed this was the custom. It appeared to me that I was providing for this crew for the winter, but I did not like to appear stingy, and said no more. The amount of drink required also surprised me. I arranged for what I thought we should need for ourselves, and then Mr. Goyles spoke up for the crew. I must say that for him, he did think of his men. We don't want anything in the nature of an orgy, Mr. Goyles, I suggested. Orgy? Replied Mr. Goyles. Why, they'll take that little drop in their tea. He explained to me that his motto was, get good men and treat them well. They work better for you, said Mr. Goyles, and they come again. Personally, I didn't feel I wanted them to come again. I was beginning to take a dislike to them before I had seen them. I regarded them as a greedy and guzzling crew. But Mr. Goyles was so cheerfully emphatic, and I was so inexperienced that again I let him have his way. He also promised that even in this department he would see to it personally that nothing was wasted. I also left him to engage the crew. He said he would do the thing, and would, for me, with the help of 2 men and a boy. If he was alluding to the clearing up of the victuals and drink, I think he was making an underestimate, but possibly he may have been speaking of the sailing of the yacht. I called at my tailor's on the way home and ordered a yachting suit with a white hat, which they promised to bustle up and have ready in time, and then I went home and told Ethelbertha all that I had done. Her delight was clouded by only one reflection. Would the dressmaker be able to finish a yachting costume for her in time? That is so like a woman. Our honeymoon, which had taken place not very long before, had been somewhat curtailed, so we decided we would invite nobody, but have the yacht to ourselves. And thankful I am to heaven that we did so decide. On Monday, we put on all our clothes and started. I forget what Ethelbertha wore, but whatever it may have been, it looked very fetching. My own costume was a dark blue, trimmed with a narrow white braid, which I think was rather effective. Mr. Goyles met us on deck, and told us that lunch was ready. I must admit, Goyles had secured the service of a very fair cook. The capabilities of the other members of the crew I had no opportunity of judging. Speaking of them in a state of rest, however, I can say of them they appeared to be a cheerful crew. My idea had been that so soon as the men had finished their dinner we would weigh anchor, while I, smoking a cigar, with Ethelbertha by my side, would lean over the gunwale and watch the white cliffs of the fatherland sink imperceptibly into the horizon. Ethelbertha and I carried out our part of the programme, and waited with the deck to ourselves. They seem to be taking their time, said Ethelbertha. If, in the course of 14 days, I said, they eat half of what is on this yacht, they will want a fairly long time for every meal. We had better not hurry them, or they won't get through a quarter of it. They must have gone to sleep, said Ethelbertha later on. It will be tea time soon. They were certainly very quiet. I went forward and hailed Captain Goyles down the ladder. I hailed him 3 times. Then he came up, slowly. He appeared to be a heavier and older man than when I had seen him last. He had a cold cigar in his mouth. "When you are ready, Captain Goyles," I said, "we'll start." Captain Goyles removed the cigar from his mouth. "Not today we won't, sir," he replied, "with your permission." "Why? What's the matter with today?" I said. I know sailors are superstitious folk. I thought maybe a Monday might be considered unlucky. "The day's all right," answered Captain Goyles. "It's the wind I'm a-thinking of. It don't look much like changing." "But do we want it to change?" I asked. "It seems to me to be just where it should be, dead behind us." "Aye, aye," said Captain Goyles. "Dead's the right word to use, for dead we'll all be, bar Providence, if we was to put out in this. You see, sir," he explained, in answer to my look of surprise, "this is what we call a land wind. That is, it's a blowing, as one might say, direct off the land." When I came to think of it, the man was right. The wind was blowing off the land. "May change in the night," said Captain Goyles more hopefully. "Anyhow, it's not violent. She rides well." Captain Goyles resumed his cigar. and I returned aft and explained to Ethelbertha the reason for the delay. Ethelbertha, who appeared to be less high-spirited than when we first boarded, wanted to know why we couldn't sail when the wind was off the land. "If it was not blowing off the land," said Ethelbertha, "it would be blowing off the sea, and that would send us back onto the shore again. It seems to me this is just the very wind we want." I said, "That is your inexperience, love. It seems to be the very wind we want, but it is not. It's what we call a land wind, and a land wind is always very dangerous." Ethelbertha wanted to know why a land wind was very dangerous. Her argumentativeness annoyed me somewhat. Maybe I was feeling a bit cross. The monotonous rolling of a small yacht at anchor depresses an ardent spirit. "I can't explain it to you," I replied, which was true, "but to set sail in this wind would be the height of foolhardiness, and I care for you too much, dear, to expose you to unnecessary risks." I thought this rather a neat conclusion, but Ethelbertha merely replied that she wished, under the circumstances, we hadn't come on board till Tuesday, and went below. In the morning, the wind veered round to the north. I was up early, and observed this to Captain Goyles. "Aye, aye, sir," he remarked. "It's unfortunate, but it can't be helped." "You don't think it is possible for us to start today?" I hazarded. He did not get angry with me. He only laughed. "Well, sir," said he, "if you was a-wanting to go to Ipswich, I should say as it couldn't be better for us, but our destination, being as you see the Dutch coast, why, there you are." I broke the news to Ethelbertha, and we agreed to spend the day on shore. Harwich is not a merry town. Towards evening you might call it dull. We had some tea and watercress at Dovercourt, and then returned to the quay to look for Captain Goyles and the boat. We waited an hour for him. When he came he was more cheerful than we were. If he had not told me himself that he never drank anything but one glass of hot grog before turning in for the night, I should have said he was drunk. The next morning the wind was in the south, which made Captain Goyles rather anxious, it appearing that it was equally unsafe to move or to stop where we were. Our only hope was that it would change before anything happened. By this time Ethelbertha had taken a dislike to the yacht. She said that, personally, she would rather be spending a week in a bathing machine, seeing that a bathing machine was at least steady. We passed another day in Harwich, and that night and the next, the wind still continuing in the south, we slept at the King's Head. On Friday the wind was blowing direct from the east. I met Captain Goyles on the quay, and suggested that, under these circumstances, we might start. He appeared irritated at my persistence. "If you knew a bit more, sir," he said, "you'd see for yourself that it's impossible. The winds are blowing direct off the sea." I said, "Captain Goyles, tell me, what is this thing I have hired? Is it a yacht or a houseboat?" He seemed surprised at my question. He said, "It's a yawl." "What I mean is," I said, "can it be moved at all, or is it a fixture here? If it is a fixture," I continued, "tell me so frankly. Then we will get some ivy in boxes and train it over the portholes, stick some flowers and an awning on the deck, and make the thing look pretty. If, on the other hand, it can be moved—" "Moved?" interrupted Captain Goyles. "You get the right wind behind the Rogue." I said, "What is the right wind?" Captain Goyles looked puzzled. "In the course of this week," I went on, "we have had wind from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, with variations. If you can think of any other point of the compass from which it can blow, tell me, and I will wait for it. If not, and if that anchor has not grown into the bottom of the ocean, we will have it up today and see what happens." He grasped the fact that I was determined. "Very well, sir," he said. "You're master and I'm man. I've only got one child as is still dependent on me, thank God, and no doubt your executors will feel it their duty to do the right thing by the old woman." His solemnity impressed me. "Mr. Goyles," I said, "be honest with me. Is there any hope, in any weather, of getting away from this damned hole?" Captain Goyle's kindly geniality returned to him. "You see, sir," he said, "this is a very peculiar coast. We'd be all right if we were out once out, but getting away from it in a cockle shell like that, well, to be frank, sir, it wants doing." I left Captain Goyles with the assurance that he would watch the weather as a mother would her sleeping babe. It was his own simile, and it struck me as rather touching. I saw him again at 12 o'clock. He was watching it from the window of the Chain and Anchor. At 5 o'clock that evening a stroke of luck occurred. In the middle of High Street I met a couple of yachting friends who had had to put in by reason of a strained rudder. I told them my story, and they appeared less surprised than amused. Captain Goyles and the two men were still watching the weather. I ran into the King's Head and prepared Ethelbertha. The four of us crept quietly down to the quay, where we found our boat. Only the boy was on board. My two friends took charge of the yacht, and by 6 o'clock we were scudding merrily up the coast. We put in that night at Aldborough, and the next day worked up to Yarmouth, where, as my friends had to leave, I decided to abandon the yacht. We sold the stores by auction on Yarmouth sands early in the morning. I made a loss, but I had the satisfaction of doing Captain Goyles. I left the Rogue in charge of a local mariner, who, for a couple of sovereigns, undertook to see to its return to Harwich, and we came back to London by train. There may be yachts other than the Rogue, and skippers other than Mr. Goyles. That experience has prejudiced me against both. George also thought a yacht would be a good deal of responsibility, so we dismissed the idea. "What about the river?" suggested Harris. "We have had some pleasant times on that." George pulled in silence at his cigar, and I cracked another nut. "The river is not what it used to be," said I. "I don't know what, but there's something, a dampness, about the river air that always starts my lumbago." "It's the same with me," said George. "I don't know how it is, but I never can sleep in the neighbourhood of any river. I spent a week at Joe's place in the spring, and every night I woke up at 7 o'clock and never got a wink afterwards." "But he suggested it," observed Harris. "Personally, I don't think it good for me either. It touches my gout." "What suits me best," I said, "is mountain air. What say you to a walking tour in Scotland?" "It's always wet in Scotland," said George. "I was 3 weeks in Scotland the year before last, and was never dry once all the time. Not in that sense." "It's fine enough in Switzerland," said Harris. "They would never stand by our going to Switzerland by ourselves." "So they would never stand our going to Switzerland by ourselves," I objected. "You know what happened last time. It must be some place where no delicately nurtured woman or child could possibly live. A country of bad hotels and comfortless travelling, where we shall have to rough it, to work hard, to starve, perhaps." "Easy," interrupted George. "Easy there. Don't forget I'm coming with you." "I have it," exclaimed Harris. "A bicycle tour." George looked doubtful. "There's a lot of uphill about a bicycle tour," said he, "and the wind is against you." "So there is downhill, and the wind behind you," said Harris. "I've never noticed it," said George. "You won't think of anything better than a bicycle tour," persisted Harris. I was inclined to agree with him. "And I'll tell you where," continued he, "through the Black Forest." "Why, that's all uphill," said George. "Not all," retorted Harris. "Say 2/3. And there's one thing you've forgotten." He looked round cautiously and sunk his voice to a whisper. "There are little railways going up those hills, little cogwheel things that—" The door opened, and Mrs. Harris appeared. She said that Ethelbertha was putting on her bonnet, and that Muriel, after waiting, had given the Mad Hatter's tea party without us. "Club tomorrow at 4, whispered Harris to me as he rose, and I passed it on to George as we went upstairs. And it's a little early, but that takes us to the end of the chapter, where I have marked out as a decently fitting break point for a, wouldn't you know it, a break. So yeah, let's have a break. Lynn, hello, welcome. This is some tangent you almost forgot. I sat discussing the plans of the upcoming trip and is reflecting on an earlier experience. As I was reading this earlier, I was remembering it from the first one that, frankly, they're written in, these chapters are written in a very, I think, deliberately scatterbrained, distracted, dare I say it, ADHD tangential style of, you've forgotten the delightful habit of tangents, but right, exactly, someone will say something, Jerome will interrupt his own narration to tell a tangent, go off on a tangent, tell the story of the thing that's reminded him of. In the middle of that, there's a chance he'll remember something else. And this is how I tell stories. This is how I relay information to people. So it's kind of great, and I love it. But yes, I am going to try, every time I sit down to read, I notice cat hairs on the mic, and then at some point I will do a big breathe in for something, and suddenly there's no cat hairs on the mic anymore, but they are in my throat. So I'm going to go try to deal with some of that. Also, I have hiccups. Why? And you need to know this. All of you need to know this. And I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes, friends, for more of this. So now I started reading this book. You remember the tangents from the other book? Yeah, exactly. And that's maybe you need a flow chart. I can understand that, but yeah, that's what this is going to be. So yeah, buckle up and get ready for an adventure that may or may not happen. Yeah, I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Bye for now. back and look at me. I clicked on the right thing this time because I was careful. I still don't understand why I'd have the talking one on, but anyway. Oh no, I just realised I didn't stream last Saturday. I didn't stream last Saturday. Therefore, that explains why everything is wrong, because I've broken my habit. No, I've not actually streamed on here, on this channel. Since the last time I did, I'm trying to be a smart ass, since the podcast with Lucy. So yeah, there we go. We solved it. Congratulations, everyone. Columbo doesn't need to turn up. We're all good. Yeah, it's a bit problematic when you kind of lose focus and then come back to paying attention and you've got to figure out what's going on. Is it a tangent? Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, the thing is, like, yeah, I agree with that entirely. As someone who knows this is how I talk, this is what happens when I'm trying to tell a story or explain something that I understand to someone, that I'm being assaulted by my own thoughts, trying, like, radioactive decay, trying to, like, send me off in all sorts of different directions all the time. And I'm like, no, I've got to stay in focus. I really gotta, like, finish one point before I jump onto the next one. I might make a reference because otherwise I'll forget, and then you, person listening, can remind me of the thing that I was going to tell you in a second. So, like, I talk like this, and as someone who does, I understand how frustrating that can be to listen to. When you, also as someone who zones in and out, this is the thing, I zone in and out of my own conversations. As a listener, you find it works best if you don't try too hard to follow, just let the vignettes wash over your brain and we'll get there in the end. Yeah, that's fair. And that's the thing, this might be one that does just work better on paper rather than read aloud. Erin, I thought you were going to bed. But also, to anyone that's like going to bed or still here on the way out, thank you for being here. Take care. Have a good sleep. Good rest of the evening. This is also how your brain works. So you're used to going with it. Yeah, like, yeah. I don't know. I guess for me, this is one of those, like, fundamental differences between an audiobook or literally written down on the paper, which is why for me I try to make that distinction between, like, not one is no more noble or one no less valid than the other. You're still consuming a text, but I feel like there is value in distinguishing between an audiobook and a written book and how you engage with that. The old conversational brain reset and the panic that you will soon forget the amazing point you want to make before they finish. Yeah. Oh, so many times. Yep. Yeah. Or just in anything, like, people who can, like, have a thought and then just retain that. How do you do that? It's like trying to hold water to me. I will, like, literally just the other day, we will get to the story, don't worry, just got a lot of time to fill. The other day, I was just sat noodling around on a keyboard with some virtual instrument sounds and stuff like that, and just played, like, a little phrase, just a couple of 4 notes or whatever in a sequence, and they're like, oh yeah, it's not the hit of the summer, but, you know, this seems like a decent little kind of starting point. I have so many files saved that are this thing, so it's not like a great loss. But in between pressing 4 notes, going to hit record, setting up the loop to record, which takes about 20 seconds, and coming back to the keyboard, I could not remember what I'd just been playing. And so I just sat there like, it had this in it and it had that, but this wasn't it. No, it's gone. That's it. It's gone. I will never have that recipe again. And yeah, people who don't have that, what's it like? Is it nice? Yeah. Let me say my thing. Sam, what did you have to say? Nothing. It's gone now. Yeah. You have at times recorded yourself humming a thought for a bit of music? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. No, this is literally, I had it all there. All I needed to do was press record, and in the process, in the steps of doing that, gone. And like, oh, okay. Well, such is life in the zone. Also, hey Shyhawk, how you doing, buddy? Hi, you pop, but actually, you know what? Everyone here knows who you are. What's the command? How do you do it? I'm going to shout you out anyway. Even though it was your YouTube channel you put up a D&D podcast roundup video or something like that, didn't you? Sometimes it's a blessing, and there's so many projects you can't finish. Yeah, true. I mean, I am, frankly, at this stage of my life this year, attempting to orchestrate some small measure of self-improvement and actually trying desperately to claw myself into a state where, Joe is helping with the clawing, where I can actually, like, finish something that I've started once, maybe, or stick with a hobby for more than 5 minutes. Too many projects and stick around far too well. Yeah, don't talk to Arian about projects, and especially don't DM them with, hey, I've got an idea for a video game, maybe, because that's just cruel. You haven't streamed for a very long time. Yeah, I know. Yeah, go watch that you just said. Oh, you make fun of Critical Role fans. Oh, I see. We're just pulling pins and lobbing grenades. Nice. Anyway, speaking of easy distractions, VOD watchers on YouTube can just click the link in the comments and skip past all of this. I'm going to sip my water. There we go, that's done. I don't have a new link for where we are, but we're on Chapter 2. We're about to start Chapter 2, so we never skip these parts. Oh, but they're so boring. It's just me muttering a bit. If we're ready, if we're good, settled, skies are turning dark, winter will soon be here, get your scarves and soup ready. Let's get cozy. Individually, not weird. And have Chapter 2 of 3 Men on the Bummel. A delicate business. What Ethelbertha might have said. What she did say. What Mrs. Harris said. What we told George. We will start on Wednesday. George suggests the possibility of improving our minds. Harris and I are doubtful. Which man on a tandem does the most work? The opinion of the man in front. Views of the man behind. How Harris lost his wife. The luggage question. The wisdom of my late Uncle Podger. Beginning of story about a man who had a bag. I opened the ball with Ethelbertha that same evening. I commenced by being purposefully a little irritable. My idea was that Ethelbertha would remark upon this. I should admit it, and account for it by over brain pressure. This would naturally lead to talk about my health in general, and the evident necessity there was for my taking prompt and vigorous measures. I thought that, with a little tact, I might even manage so that the suggestion should come from Ethelbertha herself. I imagined her saying, "No, dear, it is change you want, complete change. Now, be persuaded by me and go away for a month. No, do not ask me to come with you. I know you would rather that I did, but I will not. It is the society of other men you need. Try and persuade George and Harris to go with you. Believe me, a highly strung brain such as yours demands occasional relaxation from the strain of domestic surroundings. Forget for a little while that children want music lessons, and boots, and bicycles, with tincture of rhubarb 3 times a day. Forget that there are such things in life as cooks, and house decorators, and next-door dogs and butcher's bills. Go away to some green corner of the earth where all is new and strange to you, where your overwrought mind will gather peace and fresh ideas. Go away for a space and give me time to miss you and to reflect upon your goodness and virtue, which continually present me with. Go away for a space, and give me time to miss you, and to reflect upon your goodness and virtue, which, continually present with me, I may, human-like, be apt to forget, as one, through use, grows indifferent to the blessings of the sun and the beauty of the moon. Go away, and come back refreshed in mind and body, a brighter, better man, if that be possible, than when you went away. But even when we obtain our desires, they never come to us garbed as we would wish. To begin with, Ethelbertha did not seem to remark that I was irritable. I had to draw her attention to it. I said, "You must forgive me. I'm not feeling quite myself tonight." She said, "Oh, I have not noticed anything different. What's the matter with you?" "I can't tell you what it is," I said. "I've felt it coming on for weeks." "It's that whiskey," said Ethelbertha. "You never touch it except when you go to Harris's. You know you can't stand it. You have not a strong head." "It isn't the whiskey," I replied. "It's deeper than that. I fancy it's more mental than bodily." "You've been reading those criticisms again," said Ethelbertha more sympathetically. "Why don't you take my advice and put them on the fire?" "And it isn't the criticisms," I answered. "They've been quite flattering of late. One or two of them." "Well, what is it?" said Ethelbertha. "There must be something to account for it." "No, there isn't," I replied. "That's the remarkable thing about it. I can only describe it as a strange feeling of unrest that seems to have taken possession of me." Ethelbertha glanced across at me with a somewhat curious expression, I thought. But, as she said nothing, I continued the argument myself. "This aching monotony of life, these days of peaceful, uneventful felicity, they appall one." "I should not grumble at them," said Ethelbertha. "We might get some of the other sort, and like them still less." "I'm not so sure of that," I replied. "In a life of continuous joy, I can imagine even pain coming as a welcome variation. I wonder sometimes whether the saints in heaven do not occasionally feel the continual serenity a burden. To myself, a life of endless bliss, uninterrupted by a single contrasting note, would, I feel, grow maddening. I suppose," I continued, "I am a strange sort of man. I can hardly understand myself at times. There are moments," I added, "when I hate myself." Often a little speech like this, hinting at hidden depths of indescribable emotion, has touched Ethelbertha, but tonight she appeared strangely unsympathetic. With regard to heaven and its possible effect upon me, she suggested my not worrying myself about that, remarking it was always foolish to go halfway to meet trouble that might never come, while as to my being a strange sort of fellow, that she supposed I could not help, and if other people were willing to put up with me, there was an end of the matter. The monotony of life, she added, was a common experience. There she could sympathize with me. "You don't know how I long," said Ethelbertha, "to get away occasionally, even from you, but I know it can never be, so I do not brood upon it." I had never heard Ethelbertha speak like this before. It has astonished and grieved me beyond measure. "That's not a very kind remark to make," I said. "Not a wifely remark." "I know it isn't," she replied. "That is why I have never said it before. You men can never understand," continued Ethelbertha, "that, however fond a woman may be of a man, there are times when he pulls upon her. You don't know how I long to be able sometimes to put on my bonnet and go out, with nobody to ask me where I am going, why I am going, how long I am going to be, and when I shall be back. You don't know how I sometimes long to order a dinner that I should like, and that the children would like, but at the sight of which you would put on your hat and be off to the club. You don't know how much I feel inclined sometimes to invite some women here that I like, and that I know you don't. To go and see the people that I want to see, to go to bed when I am tired, and to get up when I feel I want to get up. Two people living together are bound both to be continually sacrificing their own desires to the other one. It is sometimes a good thing to slacken the strain a bit. On thinking over Ethelbertha's words afterwards, I have come to see their wisdom, but at the time I admit I was hurt and indignant. "If your desire," I said, "is to get rid of me—" "Now don't be an old goose," said Ethelbertha. "I only want to get rid of you for a little while, just long enough to forget there are one or two corners about you that are not perfect. Just long enough to let me remember what a dear fellow you are in other respects, and to look forward to your return, as I used to look forward to your coming in the old days when I did not see you so often as to become, perhaps, a little indifferent to you, as one grows indifferent to the glory of the sun just because he is there every day." I did not like the tone that Ethelbertha took. There seemed to be a frivolity about her, unsuited to the theme into which we had drifted. That a woman should contemplate cheerfully an absence of 3 or 4 weeks from her husband appeared to me not to be altogether nice, not what I call womanly. It was not like Ethelbertha at all. I was worried. I felt I didn't want to go to this trip at all. If it had not been for George and Harris, I would have abandoned it. As it was, I could not see how to change my mind with dignity. "Very well, Ethelbertha," I replied. "It shall be as you wish. If you desire a holiday from my presence, you shall enjoy it. But if it be not impertinent curiosity on the part of a husband, I should like to know what you propose doing in my absence." "We will take the house at Folkestone," answered Ethelbertha, "and I'll go down there with Kate. And if you want to do Clara Harris a good turn," added Ethelbertha, "you'll persuade Harris to go with you, and then Clara can join us. We 3 used to have some very jolly times together before you men ever came along, and it would be just delightful to renew them. Do you think," continued Ethelbertha, "that you could persuade Mr. Harris to go with you?" I said I would try. "There's a dear boy," said Ethelbertha. "Try hard. You might get George to join you." I replied that there was not much advantage in George's coming, seeing he was a bachelor, and that therefore nobody would much be benefited by his absence. But a woman never understands satire. Ethelbertha merely remarked that it would look unkind leaving him behind. I promised to put it to him. I met Harris at the club in the afternoon and asked him how he had got on. He said, "Oh, that's all right. There's no difficulty about getting away." But there was that about his tone that suggested incomplete satisfaction, so I pressed him for further details. "She was as sweet as milk about it," he continued, "said it was an excellent idea of George's, and that she thought it would do me good." "That seems all right," I said. "What's wrong about that?" "There's nothing wrong about that," he answered. "But that wasn't all. She went on to talk of other things." "I understand," I said. "There's that bathroom fad of hers," he continued. "I've heard of it," I said. "She has started Ethelbertha on the same idea." "Well, I've had to agree to that being put in hand at once. I couldn't argue any more when she was so nice about the other thing." "That will cost me £100 at the very least." "As much as that?" I asked. "Every penny of it," said Harris. "The estimate alone is 60. Excuse me. I'm being attacked by hiccups. I was sorry to hear him say this. "Then there's the kitchen stove," continued Harris. "Everything that's gone wrong in the house for the last 2 years has been the fault of that kitchen stove." "I know," I said. "We have been in 7 houses since we were married, and every kitchen stove has been worse than the last. Our present one is not only incompetent, it is spiteful. It knows when we are giving a party and goes out of its way to do its worst." "We are going to have a new one," said Harris, but he did not say it proudly. Clara thought it would be such a saving of expense having the two things done at the same time. I believe, said Harris, if a woman wanted a diamond tiara, she would explain that it was to save the expense of a bonnet. How much do you reckon the stove is going to cost you? I asked. I felt interested in the subject. I don't know, answered Harris. Another 20, I suppose. Then we talked about the piano. Could you ever notice, said Harris, any difference between one piano and another? Some of them seem to be a bit louder than the others, I answered. But one gets used to that. Ours is all wrong about the treble, said Harris. By the way, what is the treble? It's the shrill end of the thing, I explained. The part that sounds as if you trod on its tail. The brilliant selections always end up with a flourish on it. They want more of it, said Harris. Our old one hasn't got enough of it. I'll have to put it in the nursery and get a new one for the drawing room. Anything else? I asked. No, said Harris. She didn't seem able to think of anything else. You'll find when you get home, I said, she has thought of one other thing. What's that? Said Harris. A house at Folkestone for the season. What would she want a house at Folkestone for? Said Harris. To live in, I suggested, during the summer months. She's going to her people in Wales, said Harris, for the holidays, with the children. We've had an invitation. Possibly, I said. She'll go to Wales before she goes to Folkestone, or maybe she'll take Wales on her way home, but she'll want a house at Folkestone for the season, notwithstanding. I may be mistaken. I hope, for your sake, that I am, but I feel a presentiment that I'm not. This trip, said Harris, is going to be expensive. It was an idiotic suggestion, I said, from the beginning. It was foolish of us to listen to him, said Harris. He'll get us into real trouble one of these days. He always was a muddler, I agreed. So headstrong, added Harris. We heard his voice at that moment in the hall, asking for letters. Better not say anything to him, I suggested. It's too late to go back now. There would be no advantage in doing so, replied Harris. I should have to get that bathroom and piano in any case now. He came in, looking very cheerful. Well, he said, is it all right? Have you managed it? There was that about his tone I did not altogether like. I noticed Harris resented it also. Manage what? I said. Why, to get off, said George. I felt the time was come to explain things to George. In married life, I said, the man proposes, the woman submits. It is her duty. All religion teaches it. George folded his hands and fixed his eyes on the ceiling. We may chaff and joke about these things, I continued, but when it comes to practice, that is what always happens. We have mentioned to our wives that we are going. Naturally, they are grieved. They would prefer to come with us. Failing that, they would have us remain with them. But we have explained to them our wishes on the subject, and there's an end of the matter. George said, Forgive me, I did not understand. I am only a bachelor. People tell me this, that, and the other, and I listen. I said, That is where you do wrong. When you want information, come to Harris or myself. We will tell you the truth about these questions. George thanked us, and we proceeded with the business in hand. When shall we start? Said George. So far as I am concerned, replied Harris, the sooner the better. His idea, I fancy, was to get away before Mrs. H. thought of other things. We fixed the following Wednesday. What about the route? Said Harris. I have an idea, said George. I take it you fellows are naturally anxious to improve your minds. I said, We don't want to become monstrosities. To a reasonable degree, yes, if it can be done without much expense and with little personal trouble. It can, said George. We know Holland and Rhine very, very well. My suggestion is that we take the boat to Hamburg, see Berlin and Dresden, and work our way to the Schwarzwald, through Nuremberg and Stuttgart. There are some pretty bits in Mesopotamia, so I've been told, murmured Harris. George said Mesopotamia was too much out of the way, but that the Berlin to Dresden route was quite practicable. For good or evil, he persuaded us into it. "The machines, I suppose," said George, as before. "Harris and I on the tandem, Jay—" "I think not," interrupted Harris firmly. "You and Jay on the tandem, I on the single." "All the same to me," agreed George. "Jay and I on the tandem, Harris—" "I do not mind taking my turn," I interrupted, "but I am not going to carry George all the way. The burden should be divided." "Very well," agreed Harris. "We'll divide it. But it must be on the distinct understanding that he works." "That he what?" said George. "That he works," repeated Harris firmly. "At all events, uphill." "Great Scott!" said George. "Don't you want any exercise?" There is always unpleasantness about this tandem. It is the theory of the man in front that the man behind does nothing. It is equally the theory of the man behind that he alone is the motive power, the man in front merely doing the puffing. The mystery will never be solved. It is annoying when prudence is whispering to you on the one side not to overdo your strength and bring on heart disease, while justice into the other ear is remarking, "Why should you do it all? This isn't a cab. He's not your passenger." To hear him grunt out, "What's the matter? Lost your pedals?" Harris, in his early married days, made much trouble for himself on one occasion, owing to this impossibility of knowing what the person behind is doing. He was riding with his wife through Holland. The roads were stony, and the machine jumped a good deal. "Sit tight," said Harris, without turning his head. What Mrs. Harris thought he said was, "Jump off." Why she should have thought he said "jump off" when he said "sit tight," neither of them can explain. Mrs. Harris puts it this way: "If you had said sit tight, why should I have jumped off?" Harris puts it: If I had wanted you to jump off, why should I have said sit tight?" The bitterness is past, but they argue about the matter to this day. Be the explanation what it may, however, nothing alters the fact that Mrs. Harris did jump off, while Harris pedalled away hard, under the impression that she was still behind him. It appears that at first she thought he was riding up the hill merely to show off. They were both young in those days, and he used to do that sort of thing. She expected him to spring to earth on reaching the summit and lean in a careless and graceful attitude against the machine, waiting for her. When, on the contrary, she saw him pass the summit and proceed rapidly down a long and steep incline, she was seized first with surprise, secondly with indignation, and lastly with alarm. She ran to the top of the hill and shouted, but he never turned his head. She watched him disappear into a wood 1.5 miles distant, and then sat down and cried. They had had a slight difference that morning, and she wondered if he had taken it seriously and intended desertion. She had no money. She knew no Dutch. People passed and seemed sorry for her. She tried to make them understand what had happened. They gathered that she had lost something but could not grasp what. They took her to the nearest village and found a policeman for her. He concluded from her pantomime that some man had stolen her bicycle. They put the telegraph into operation and discovered in a village 4 miles off an unfortunate boy riding a lady's machine of an obsolete pattern. They brought him to her in a cart, but as she did not appear to want either him or his bicycle, they let him go again and resigned themselves to bewilderment. Meanwhile, Harris continued his ride with much enjoyment. It seemed to him that he had suddenly become a stronger and in every way a more capable cyclist. Said he to what he thought was Mrs. Harris, "I haven't felt this machine so light in months. It's this air, I think. It's doing me good." Then he told her not to be afraid, and he would show her how fast he could go. He bent down over the handles and put his heart into his work. The bicycle bounded over the road like a thing of life, Farmhouses and churches, dogs and chickens came to him and passed. Old folks stood and gazed at him. The children cheered him. In this way he sped merrily onward for about 5 miles. Then, as he explained it, the feeling began to grow upon him that something was wrong. He was not surprised at the silence. The wind was blowing strongly, and the machine was rattling a good deal. It was a sense of void that came upon him. He stretched out his hand behind him and felt. There was nothing there but space. He jumped, or rather fell off, and looked back up the road. It stretched white and straight through the dark wood, and not a living soul could be seen upon it. He remounted and rode back up the hill. In 10 minutes he came to where the road broke into 4. There he dismounted and tried to remember which fork he had come down. While he was deliberating, a man passed, sitting sideways on a horse. Harris stopped him and explained to him that he had lost his wife. The man appeared to be neither surprised nor sorry for him. While they were talking, another farmer came along, to whom the first man explained the matter not as an accident, but as a good story. What appeared to surprise the second man most was that Harris should be making a fuss about the thing. He could get no sense out of either of them, and cursing them, he mounted his machine again and took the middle road on chance. Halfway up, he came upon a party of 2 young women with 1 young man between them. They appeared to be making the most of him. He asked them if they had seen his wife. They asked him what she was like. He did not know enough Dutch to describe her properly. All he could tell them was that she was very beautiful. She was a very beautiful woman, of medium size. Evidently this did not satisfy them. The description was too general. Any man could say that, and by this means perhaps get possession of a wife that did not belong to him. They asked him how she was dressed. For the life of him he could not recollect. I doubt if any man could tell how any woman was dressed 10 minutes after he had left her. He recollected a blue skirt, and then there was something that carried the dress on, as it were, up to the neck. Possibly this may have been a blouse. He retained a dim vision of a belt, but what sort of a blouse? Was it green, or yellow, or blue? Had it a collar, or was it fastened with a bow? Were there feathers in her hat? Or flowers? Or was it a hat at all? He dared not say, for fear of making a mistake and being sent miles after the wrong party. The 2 young women giggled, which, in his then state of mind, irritated Harris. The young man, who appeared anxious to get rid of him, suggested the police station at the next town. Harris made his way there. The police gave him a piece of paper and told him to write down a full description of his wife, together with the details of when and where he lost her. He did not know where he had lost her. All he could tell them was the name of the village where they had lunched. He knew he had her with him then, and that they had started from there together. The police looked suspicious. They were doubtful about 3 matters. Firstly, was she really his wife? Secondly, had he really lost her? Thirdly, why had he lost her? With the aid of a hotel keeper, however, who spoke a little English, he overcame their scruples. They promised to act, and in the evening they brought her to him in a covered wagon, together with a bill for expenses. The meeting was not a tender one. Mrs. Harris is not a good actress, and always has great difficulty in disguising her feelings. On this occasion, she frankly admits she made no attempt to disguise them. The wheel business settled, there arose the everlasting luggage question. "The usual list, I suppose?" said George, preparing to write. That was wisdom I had taught them. I had learned it myself years ago from my Uncle Podger. Always, before beginning to pack, my uncle would say, make a list. He was a methodical man. Take a piece of paper, he always began at the beginning, Put down on it everything you can possibly require, then go over it and see that it contains nothing you can possibly do without. Imagine yourself in bed. What have you got on? Very well, put it down, together with a change. You get up. What do? Wash yourself. What do you wash yourself with? Soap. Put soap down. Go on till you have finished. Then take your clothes. Begin at your feet. What do you wear on your feet? Boots, shoes, socks. Put them down. A corkscrew. Put it down. Put down everything, then you don't forget anything. That is the plan he always pursued himself. The list made, he would go over it carefully, as he always advised, to see that he had forgotten nothing. Then he would go over it again, and strike out everything it was possible to dispense with. Then he would lose the list. Said George, "Just sufficient for a day or two we'll take with us on our bikes. The bulk of the luggage we must send on from town to town." "We must be careful," I said. "I knew a man once." Harris looked at his watch. "We'll hear about him on the boat," said Harris. "I've got to meet Clara at Waterloo Station in half an hour." "It won't take half an hour," I said. "It's a true story, and—" "Don't waste it," said George. "I'm told there are rainy evenings in the Black Forest. You may be glad of it. What we have to do now is to finish this list." Now I come to think of it, I never did get off that story. Something always interrupted it. And it really was true. Chapter 3. Harris's One Fault. Harris and the Angel. A patent bicycle lamp. The ideal saddle. The overhauler. His eagle eye. His method. His cheery confidence. His simple and inexpensive tastes. His appearance. How to get rid of him. George as prophet. The gentle art of making oneself disagreeable in a foreign tongue. George as a student of human nature. He proposes an experiment. His prudence. Harris's support secured upon conditions. On Monday afternoon, Harris came round. He had a cycling paper in his hand. I said, "If you take my advice, you will leave it alone." Harris said, "Leave what alone?" I said, "That brand new patent revolution in cycling, record-breaking tomfoolishness, whatever it may be, the advertisement of which you have there in your hand." He said, "Well, I don't know. There will be some steep hills for us to negotiate. I guess we shall want a good break." I said, "We shall want a break, I agree. What we shall not want is a mechanical surprise that we don't understand, and that never acts when it is wanted." "This thing," he said, "acts automatically." "You needn't tell me," I said. "I know exactly what it will do by instinct. Going uphill, it will jam the wheels so effectively that we shall have to carry the machine bodily. The air at the top of the hill will do it good, and it will suddenly come right again. Going downhill, it will start reflecting what a nuisance it has been. This will lead to remorse and finally despair. It will say to itself, 'I am not fit to be a brake. I don't help these fellows. I only hinder them. I'm a curse, that's what I am,' and without a word of warning it will chuck the whole business. That is what that brake will do. Leave it alone. You are a good fellow," I continued, "but you have one fault." "What?" he asked indignantly. "You have too much faith," I answered. "If you read an advertisement, you go away and believe it. Every experiment that every fool has thought of in connection with cycling you have tried. Your guardian angel appears to be incapable, and so it appears to be a capable and conscientious spirit, and hitherto she has seen you through. Take my advice and don't try her too far. She must have had a busy time since you started cycling. Don't go on till you make her mad." He said, "If every man taught like that, there would be no advancement made in any department of life. If nobody ever tried a new thing, the world would come to a standstill. It is by—" "I know all that can be said on that side of the argument," I interrupted. "I agree in trying new experiments up to 35. After 35, I consider a man is entitled to think of himself. You and I have done our duty in this direction. You especially. You have been blown up by a patent gas lamp." He said, "I really think you know that was my fault. I think I must have screwed it up too tight." I said, "I am quite willing to believe that if there was a wrong way of handling the thing, that is the way you handled it. You should take that tendency of yours into consideration. It bears upon the argument. Myself, I did not notice what you did. I only know we were riding peacefully and pleasantly along the Whitby Road, discussing the 30 Years' War, when your lamp went off like a pistol shot. The start sent me into the ditch, and your wife's face, when I told her there was nothing the matter and that she was not to worry, because the 2 men would carry you upstairs, and the doctor would be round in a minute bringing the nurse with him, still lingers in my memory." He said, "I wish you had thought to pick up the lamp. I should like to have found out what was the cause of it going off like that." I said, "There was not time to pick up the lamp. I calculate it would have taken 2 hours to have collected it. As to its going off, the mere fact of its being advertised as the safest lamp ever invented would of itself, to anyone but you, have suggested accident. Then there was that electric lamp," I continued. "Well, that really did give a fine light," he replied. "You said so yourself." I said, "It gave a brilliant light in the King's Road, Brighton, and frightened a horse. The moment we got into the dark beyond Kemp Town, it went out, and you were summoned for riding without a light. You may remember that on sunny afternoons you used to ride about with the lamp shining for all it was worth. When lighting up time came, it was naturally tired and wanted a rest." "It was a bit irritating, that lamp," he murmured. "I remember it." I said, "It irritated me. It must have been worse for you. Then there are saddles," I went on. I wished to get this lesson home to him. "Can you think of any saddle ever advertised that you have not tried?" He said, "It has been an idea of mine to get the right saddle. It has been an idea of mine that the right saddle is to be found." I said, "You give up that idea. This is an imperfect world of joy and sorrow mingled. There may be a better land where bicycle saddles are made out of rainbow, stuffed with cloud. In this world the simplest thing is to get used to something hard. There was that saddle you bought in Birmingham. It was divided in the middle and looked like a pair of kidneys." He said, "You mean that one constructed on anatomical principles?" "Very likely," I replied. "The box you bought it in had a picture on the cover representing a sitting skeleton, or rather that part of a skeleton which does sit." He said, "It was quite correct. It showed you the true position of the—" "We will not go into details. The picture always seems to me indelicate." He said, "Medically speaking, it was right." "Possibly," I said, "for a man who rode in nothing but his bones. I only know that I tried it myself, and that, to a man who wore flesh, it was agony. Every time you went over a stone or a rut, it nipped you. It was like riding an irritable lobster. You rode that for a month." "I thought it was only right to give it a fair trial," he answered. I said, "You gave your family a fair trial also, if you will allow me the use of slang. Your wife told me that never in the whole course of your married life had she known you so bad-tempered, so unchristian-like as you were that month. Then you remember that other saddle, the one with the spring under it." He said, "You mean the spiral?" I said, "I mean the one that jerked you up and down like a jack-in-the-box. Sometimes you came down again in the right place, and sometimes you didn't. I am not referring to these matters merely to recall painful memories, but I want to impress you with the folly of trying experiments at your time of life." He said, "I wish you wouldn't harp so much on my age. A man at 34... "A man at what?" He said, "If you don't want the thing, don't have it. If your machine runs away with you down a mountain, and you and George get flung through a church roof, don't blame me." "I cannot promise for George," I said. "A little thing will sometimes irritate him, as you know. If such an accident as you suggest happen, he may be cross, but I will undertake to explain to him that it was not your fault." One second, I've got Joey howling at the door. Lap. Go and box. Go and cardboard box. Which he knocked over earlier. Like a jump. Tried to jump in from the top and just took it all down. Where was I? Yeah, thank you. No, you go there. No, don't jump on me. Where was I? Right. If such an accident as you suggest happen, he may be cross, but I will undertake to explain to him that it was not your fault. Is the thing all right? He asked. The tandem, I replied, is well. He said, have you overhauled it? I said, I have not, nor is anyone else going to overhaul it, and Joey says meow. The thing is now in working order, and it is going to remain in working order till we start. I have had experience of this overhauling. There was a man at Folkestone. I used to meet him on the Leas. He proposed one evening we should go for a long bicycle ride together on the following day, and I agreed. I got up early, for me. I made an effort and was pleased with myself. He came half an hour late. I was waiting for him in the garden. It was a lovely day. He said, "That's a good-looking machine of yours. How does it run?" "Oh, like most of them," I answered. "Easily enough in the morning, goes a little stiffly after lunch." He caught hold of it by the front wheel and the fork and shook it violently. I said, "Don't do that, you'll hurt it." I did not see why he should shake it. It had not done anything to him. Besides, if it wanted shaking, I was the proper person to shake it. I felt, much as I should, that he had started whacking my dog, or cat. He said, "This front wheel wobbles." I said, "It doesn't if you don't wobble it." It didn't wobble, as a matter of fact. Nothing worth calling a wobble. Apologies, the door is shut. This cannot be allowed to continue. You, anyone want a cat? Where was I? He said, "This front wheel wobbles." I said, "It doesn't if you don't wobble it." It didn't wobble, as a matter of fact. Nothing worth calling a wobble. He said, "This is dangerous. Have you got a screw hammer?" I ought to have been firm, but I thought that perhaps he really did know something about the business. I went to the tool shed to see what I could find. When I came back, he was sitting on the ground with the front wheel between his legs. He was playing with it, twiddling it round between his fingers. The remnant of the machine was lying on the gravel path beside him. He said, "Something has happened to this front wheel of yours." "It looks like it, doesn't it?" I answered. But he was the sort of man that never understands satire. He said, "It looks to me as if the bearings were all wrong." I said, "Don't you trouble about it any more, you will make yourself tired. Let us put it back and get off." He said, "We may as well see what is the matter with it. Now it is out, so we may as well see what the matter is with it. Now it is out." He talked as though it had dropped out by accident. Before I could stop him, he had unscrewed something somewhere, and out rolled all over the path some dozen or so little balls. "Catch 'em!" he shouted. "Catch 'em! We mustn't lose any of them!" He was quite excited about them. We grovelled round for half an hour, and found 16. He said he hoped we had got them all, because, if not, it would make a serious difference to the machine. He said there was nothing you should be more careful about in taking a bicycle to pieces than seeing you did not lose any of the balls. He explained that you ought to count them as you took them out, and see that exactly the same number went back in each place. I promised, if I ever took a bicycle to pieces, I would remember his advice. I put the balls for safety in my hat, and I put my hat upon the doorstep. It was not a sensible thing to do, I admit. As a matter of fact, it was a silly thing to do. I am not, as a rule, addle-headed. His influence must have affected me. He then said that while he was about, he would see to the chain for me, and at once began taking off the gear case. I did try to persuade him from that. I told him what an experienced friend of mine once said to me solemnly, "If anything goes wrong with your gear case, sell the machine and buy a new one. It comes cheaper." He said, "People talk like that who understand nothing about machines. Nothing is easier than taking off a gear case." I had to confess he was right. In less than 5 minutes he had the gear case in 2 pieces lying on the path and was grovelling for screws. He said it was always a mystery to him the way the screws disappeared. We were still looking for the screws when Ethelbertha came out. She seemed surprised to find us there. She said she thought we had started hours ago. He said, "You shan't be long now. I'm just helping your husband to overhaul this machine of his. It's a good machine, but they all want going over occasionally." Ethelbertha said, "If you want to wash yourselves when you have done, you might go into the back kitchen, if you don't mind. The girls have just finished the bedrooms." She told me that if she met Kate they would probably go for a sail, but that in any case she would be back to lunch. I would have given a sovereign to be going with her. I was getting heartily sick of standing about watching this fool breaking up my bicycle. Common sense continued to whisper to me, "Stop him. Before he does any more mischief, you have a right to protect your own property from the ravages of a lunatic. Take him by the scruff of the neck and kick him out of the gate." But I am weak when it comes to hurting other people's feelings, and I let him muddle on. He gave up looking for the rest of the screws. He said screws had a knack of turning up when you least expected them, and that now he would see to the chain. He tightened it till it would not move. Next he loosened it until it was twice as loose as it was before. Then he said we had better think about getting the front wheel back into its place again. I held the fork open, and he worried with the wheel. At the end of 10 minutes I suggested he should hold the forks and that I should handle the wheel, and we changed places. At the end of his first minute he dropped the machine and took a short walk round the croquet lawn, with his hands pressed together between his thighs. He explained as he walked that the thing to be careful about was to avoid getting your fingers pinched between the forks and the spokes of the wheel. I replied I was convinced from my own experience that there was much truth in what he said. He wrapped himself up in a couple of dusters, and we commenced again. At length we did get the thing into position, and the moment it was in position he burst out laughing. I said, "What's the joke?" He said, "Well, I am an ass." It was the first thing he had said that made me respect him. I asked him what had led to this discovery. He said, "We've forgotten the balls." I looked for my hat. It was lying topsy-turvy in the middle of the path, and Ethelbertha's favourite hound was swallowing the balls as fast as he could pick them up. "He will kill himself," said Ebson. I have never met him since that day, thank the Lord, but I think his name was Ebson. "They are solid steel." I said, "I'm not troubling about the dog. He's had a bootlace and a packet of needles already this week. Nature's the best guide. Puppies seem to require this kind of stimulant. What I am thinking about is my bicycle." He was of a cheerful disposition. He said, "Well, we must put back all we can find and trust to Providence." We found 11. We fixed 6 on one side and 5 on the other, and half an hour later the wheel was in its place again. It need hardly be added that it really did wobble now. A child might have noticed it. Ebson said it would do for the present. He appeared to be getting a bit tired himself. If I had let him, he would, I believe, at this point have gone home. I was determined now, however, that he should stop and finish. I had abandoned all thoughts of a ride. My pride in the machine he had killed. My only interest lay now in seeing him scratch and bump and pinch himself. I revived his drooping spirits with a glass of beer and some judicious praise. I said, "Watching you do this is of real use to me. It is not only your skill and dexterity that fascinates me, it is your cheery confidence in yourself, your inexplicable hopefulness that does me good." Thus encouraged, he set to work to refix the gear case. He stood the bicycle against the house and worked from the off side. Then he stood it against a tree and worked from the near side. Then I held it for him while he lay on the ground with his head between the wheels and worked at it from below and dropped oil upon himself. Then he took it away from me and doubled himself across it like a pack saddle till he lost his balance and slid over onto his head. 3 times he said, "Thank heaven, that's right at last." And twice he said, "No, I'm damned if it is after all." What he said the 3rd time I tried to forget. Then he lost his temper and tried bullying the thing. The bicycle, I was glad to see, showed spirit, and the subsequent proceedings degenerated into little else than a rough-and-tumble fight between him and the machine. One moment the bicycle would be on the gravel path and he on top of it. The next, the position would be reversed. He on the gravel path, the bicycle on him. Now he would be standing flushed with victory, the bicycle firmly fixed between his legs. But his triumph would be short-lived. By a sudden, quick movement it would free itself and, turning upon him, hit him sharply over the head with one of its handles. At 1:45, dirty and dishevelled, cut and bleeding, he said, "I think that'll do," and rose and wiped his brow. The bicycle looked as if it also had had enough of it. Which had received the most punishment it would have been difficult to say. I took him into the back kitchen where, so far as was possible, without soda and proper tools, he cleaned himself and sent him home. The bicycle I put into a cab and took round to the nearest repairing shop. The foreman of the works came up and looked at it. "I want you," I said, "so far as is possible to restore it." "It's a bit far gone," said he. "I'll do my best." He did his best, which came to £2.10, but it was never the same machine again, and at the end of the season I left it in an agent's hands to sell. I wished to deceive nobody. I instructed the man to advertise it as a last year's machine. The agent advised me not to mention any date. He said, "In this business it isn't a question of what's true and what isn't, it's a question of what you can get people to believe. Now between you and me it don't look like last year's machine. So far as looks are concerned, it might be a 10-year-old. We'll say nothing about the date, we'll just get what we can." I left the matter to him, and he got me £5, which he said was more than he had expected. There are 2 ways you can get exercise out of a bicycle. You can overhaul it, or you can ride it. On the whole, I am not sure what a man who takes his pleasure in overhauling does not have. I'm not sure that a man who takes his pleasure in overhauling does not have the best of the bargain. He is independent of the weather and the wind. The state of the roads troubles him not. Give him a screw hammer, a bundle of rags, an oil can, and something to sit down upon, and he is happy for the day. He has to put up with certain disadvantages, of course. There is no joy without alloy. He himself always looks like a tinker, and his machine suggests the idea that, having stolen it, he has tried to disguise it. But, as he rarely gets beyond the first milestone with it, this, perhaps, does not matter. The mistake some people make is in thinking that they can get both forms of sport out of the same machine. This is impossible. No machine will stand the double strain. You must make up your mind whether you are going to be an overhauler or a rider. Personally, I prefer to ride. Therefore, I take care to have near me nothing that can tempt me to overhaul. When anything happens to my machine, I wheel it to the nearest repairing shop. If I am too far from the town or village to walk, I sit by the roadside and wait till a cart comes along. My chief danger, I always find, is from the wandering overhauler. The sight of a broken-down machine is to the overhauler as a wayside corpse to a crow. He swoops down upon it with a friendly yell of triumph. At first I used to try politeness. I would say, "It is nothing, don't you trouble, you ride on and enjoy yourself. I beg it of you as a favour, please go away." Experience has taught me, however, that courtesy is of no use in such an extremity. Now I say, "You go away and leave the thing alone, or I will knock your silly head off." And if you look determined, and have a good stout cudgel in your hand, you can generally drive him off. George came in later in the day. He said, Well, do you think everything will be ready? I said, everything will be ready by Wednesday, except, perhaps, you and Harris. He said, is the tandem all right? The tandem, I said, is well. He said, you don't think it wants overhauling? I replied, age and experience have taught me that there are few matters concerning which a man does well to be positive. Consequently, there remain to me now but a limited number of questions upon which I feel any degree of certainty. Among such still unshaken beliefs, however, is the conviction that the tandem does not want overhauling. I also feel a presentiment that, provided my life is spared, no human being between now and Wednesday morning is going to overhaul it. George said, I should not show temper over the matter if I were you. There will come a day, perhaps not far distant, when that bicycle, with a couple of mountains between it and the nearest repairing shop, will, in spite of your chronic desire for rest, have to be overhauled. Then you will clamour for people to tell you where you put the oil can, and what you have done with the screw hammer. Then, while you exert yourself holding the thing steady against a tree, you will suggest that somebody else should clean the chain and pump the back wheel. I felt there was justice in George's rebuke. Also a certain amount of prophetic wisdom. I said, forgive me if I seemed unresponsive. The truth is, Harris was round here this morning. George said, say no more. I understand. Besides, what I came to talk to you about was another matter. Look at that. He handed me a small book bound in red cloth. It was a guide to English conversation for the use of German travellers. It commenced on a steamboat and terminated at the doctor's, its longest chapter being devoted to conversation in a railway carriage, among, apparently, a compartment load of quarrelsome and ill-mannered lunatics. Can you not get farther away from me, sir? It is impossible, madam. My neighbour here is very stout. Shall we not endeavour to arrange our legs? Please have the goodness to keep your elbows down. Pray do not inconvenience yourself, madam, if my shoulder is of any accommodation to you. Whether intended to be said sarcastically or not, there was nothing to indicate. I really must request you to move a little, madam. I can hardly breathe. The author's idea being, presumably, that by this time the whole party was mixed up together on the floor. The chapter concluded with the phrase, Here we are at our destination. God be thanked. Gott sei Dank. A pious exclamation which, under the circumstances, must have taken the form of a chorus. At the end of the book was an appendix, giving the German traveller hints concerning the preservation of his health and comfort during his sojourn in English towns. Chief among such hints being advice to him to always travel with a supply of disinfectant powder, to always lock his bedroom door at night, and to always carefully count his small change. It is not a brilliant publication, I remarked, handing the book back to George. It is not a book that personally I would recommend to any German about to visit England. I think it would get him disliked, but I have read books published in London for the use of English travellers abroad, every whit as foolish. Some educated idiot misunderstanding 7 languages would appear to go about writing these books for the misinformation and false guidance of modern Europe. You cannot deny, said George, that these books are in large request. They are bought by the thousand, I know. In every town in Europe there must be people going about talking this sort of thing. Maybe, I replied, but fortunately nobody understands them. I have noticed, myself, men standing on railway platforms and at street corners reading aloud from such books. Nobody knows what language they are speaking. Nobody has the slightest knowledge of what they are saying. This is perhaps as well. Were they understood, they would probably be assaulted. George said, Maybe you are right. My idea is to see what would happen if they were understood. My proposal is to get to London early on Wednesday morning, and spend an hour or 2 going about and shopping with the aid of this book. There are 1 or 2 little things I want. A hat and a pair of bedroom slippers, among other articles. Our boat doesn't leave Tilbury till 12, and that just gives us time. I want to try this sort of talk where I can properly judge of its effect. I want to see how the foreigner feels when he is talked to in this way. It struck me as a sporting idea. In my enthusiasm, I offered to accompany him and wait outside the shop. I said I thought that Harris would like to be in it too, or rather outside. George said that was not quite his scheme. His proposal was that Harris and I should accompany him into the shop, with Harris, who looks formidable, to support him, and myself at the door to call the police if necessary. He said he was willing to adventure the thing. We walked round to Harris's and put the proposal before him. He examined the book, especially the chapters dealing with the purchase of shoes and hats. He said, "If George talks to any bootmaker or any hatter, the things that are put down here, it is not support he will want, it's carrying to the hospital that he will need." That made George angry. "You talk," said George, "as though I were a foolhardy boy without any sense. I shall select the more polite and less irritating speeches. The grosser insults I shall avoid." This being clearly understood, Harris gave in his adhesion, and our start was fixed for early Wednesday morning. Which brings us to the end of the chapter and where I'm finishing for tonight. I'm sure that will go well. Thank you for listening. How are we all doing? Stephen, hello, welcome. He's laughing like a grown-up. It's like... like Three Men on a Boat is the one, seemingly the one that everyone knows and was more popular. Like, this book didn't sell as well. But I started reading it and was already like just taking photos to send like frankly sizable pictures of like pages of text in the book to Lucy, just being like, nah, he's still got it. This is great. Yeah, I like very much second verse, same as the first. Yeah, and like that's fine. The first was a comedy banger. And this is, you know, yeah. Doing good, how's me? Yeah, not doing too bad, I think. Doing okay. Someone who enjoys the bit, you're here for it. Yeah, it's like it's the stealth tangent. You're just waiting for him to suddenly go, oh yeah, that reminds me of a guy. Like, wait. And yeah. And even the yeah. Even him doing that and being cut off by the others. It was like, oh, wait, yeah, no, that reminds me of a guy. And they're like, look, I've got to be somewhere in half an hour. Maybe save that story. Tap's wrist. Like, just, you know, just, I've got to... Right, time to hit the old dusty trail. It's like, no, wait, I've got a really good story about a man. No, look, sometime in the next month, we'll be sat in a tent in the middle of the Black Forest, surrounded by rain with nothing else to do. You can tell it then. And then he's like, yeah, you know what? I never actually did tell that story. Damn it, they got me. But yeah, just the bit where he's envisioning how his wife, how he will like expertly kite his wife into like, no, you know what? Here's my master plan. I'm going to tell Ethelbertha that my mood's my mood's just not right this evening. I don't know. There's something that I'm afflicted with some kind of melancholy, and I shall with precision coax her into suggesting that I go away on a holiday. And he does this, and it doesn't work. And eventually, she's like, you know what? Look, honestly, sometimes I just want a break. Sometimes it is exhausting being. And he's like, that's not very what. What? That's not very wifely of you. And his fantasy was like, I shall miss you. I shall. You know, I grow tired. I wish to appreciate you as the sun and the moon. And she's like, yeah, you know, I just want to appreciate you. Like you kind of get bored of the sun, seeing it every day, and it would be nice if you went away and I could. And he's like, what? What did you? Fine. Right. And he like it's exquisite. And yeah, and the whole like, well, you know, a woman doesn't appreciate satire. or a man of this type can't appreciate satire. It's, yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to more of this. The fact that he doesn't recognise his own trick being turned on him exactly. Yeah, it's like, bro, bro, one more for luck, bro. It's very good. So yeah, that's us. That's this for this evening. Thank you for being here. I don't know of any drastic changes to the schedule, so I expect Lucy will be probably reading on Wednesday. I don't know, and I hopefully back next Saturday. Things being well for more of this. So yeah, I think Lucy's getting close to the end of Barchester Towers, so you know that'll probably overlap with some of this, and we'll see where we go next. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. You've been a wonderful, lovely audience. Do I have somewhere that I can send you for a raid? Oh, Surge is playing Cast and Chill. That is one that I have been thinking of getting for some kind of chill vibe streams. Should we go over and say hello to Surge? We like Surge. Surge is lovely. Oh, D&D tomorrow on Dave's. Yes, that's true. We're going around Dave's gaff. But, like, online to play some D&D tomorrow. Good grief, it makes me jump every time when the pub just 100 yards down the road empties their bottles out. I hate it. Yeah, because I had the windows open and I hear this loud crash of 1,000 bottles being tipped over. It spooks me. Right, let's go over and say hi to Surge. As I say, lovely, lovely guy. Super chill. He's playing Cast and Chill. It's family-friendly channel. No swearing. But, you know, you're good about that anyway. I mean, we don't have a no swearing rule. But, you know, Pete, you're a good lot. You don't rock up into someone's chat and start being obnoxious. You're all good. So, yeah. See you on the next one. Thank you all. Goodbye and good night.